Hi everyone, this is our post week 1 report, just to go over what we've done this week from a fitness testing standpoint and then from an exercise prescription standpoint. For our fitness testing, we probably had about a dozen athletes come through the gym starting on Monday. We worked through a bit of an assessment model with them. For our assessments, it's been an ever-evolving assessment. I usually take a little bit from here and there, what I like to use, what I don't like to use. We don't really stick to one prescription of assessment. We like to kind of take a little bit from everything, whether it be exercises that I've used in the past that I really like for an assessment, or we take a little bit from another strength and conditioning coach or rehab specialist. So originally I kind of used the Reebok movement screens and then kind of started evolving my own assessment. And then as the FMS testing came out, I started to intertwine that into the assessment. And now it's kind of a mishmash of both. So in our assessments that you'll see, we focus on a few of the FMS, a few of the Reebok movement screens, and then a couple exercises that I like to use on myself for our athletes. So we did our assessments on Monday. We also incorporate a little bit of fitness testing. So for the fitness testing, what we do is put the guys on the bike. And we do a 1-minute recovery test. So I get them to get their heart rate up to around 85 to 90% of their heart rate for 1 minute. And then we see how long it takes them to come down to about 60% of their heart rate max. So we calculate that time between the peak of their, say, 90 to 91% that they would get to, all the way down to 60. And then we use that as a baseline for us to focus on our recovery throughout the whole off season. We do that 1 minute 3 times to kind of get good consistency. The same thing you'd see for like a broad jump. You need to get 3 times, 3 reps in just to get a nice consistency. And we kind of take the average out of the 3 tests. For another bike test, we do the Wingate test. So it's 30 seconds on our Kaiser spin bikes. We don't have the actual Wingate bikes that are used, so we kind of modify it a little bit with our Kaisers. So I do it a little bit based off of their body weight. So if you're above 200 pounds, we like to go at gear 24. If you're below 200 pounds, in between 185 and 200, we're at gear 22. And then below 185 pounds, we're around gear 20. Every bike's going to be a little bit different, but I like to use the same bike for everyone because I have a good idea of what the tension is on the bike. And then we take down the watts, their peak watt, which would usually happen in the first 10 seconds. And then we take down their 10 second, their 15, 20, 25, and then 30 second power output on the bike, so the watts. And then we kind of average that out to get their mean output and then their peak. So it's a really good test. It kind of also gives us a really good guideline to see where they are throughout the whole off season if we're increasing the power output on the bikes. We also do 75% bench press of body weight for as many reps as it can do. That kind of gives me a good idea of weights that I should be using when we coming up into our strength work. It gives us a kind of a good percentage to work off of. It's not necessarily to see how good their bench press is. It just gives me a good idea of what weights we'll be able to use when we move into our strength phase. We also do a chin-up test. The chin-up test not necessarily is for the exercise. It's more necessarily for their shoulder health, their scapular mobility. I find it's a really good exercise to see how their scapular moves and the mobility of their shoulder that they have as they go through the movement. The last one we do is the broad jump. Same thing like the 1-minute recovery test. We do it 3 reps. We take the best of 3. I think our biggest jump was around 9 feet 3 inches or something like that this year. So lots of power in the legs just starting off the off season. So that's our fitness assessment and our fitness testing. And then later on, we'll touch on our exercise prescription. Enjoy the next few little videos you see here coming up with the assessment and the testing, and then we'll touch back with the exercise prescriptions. Hey guys, so for exercise prescription this week, we focused a lot on our posterior chain of our body, a lot of corrective exercises, hip complex mobility, stability, our ankle health, mobility, stability, thoracic mobility, so a lot of guys that have really tight backs, getting them, opening them up and getting them a little bit more mobile. Our trunk stabilization, so that's going to be a lot of our core work, and then we did a little bit of increased cardiovascular fitness. So with the cardio, we worked around 80% of our heart rate for 5-minute bouts, and then as we move on, we can start changing up some of those variables, whether it be our rest, our load, time on the workload, all sorts of different things. So that's how we're going to manipulate those as we go throughout the whole off season. One thing we do is what we do in our assessments. We take those exercises we see and we try to use the corrective exercises to help stabilize, help injury prevention throughout, say, a shoulder or something like that, or a hip. We have a tight hip. We're going to focus on exercises during these next couple weeks to try to increase the strength of that hip or help get a little bit more mobility through that hip. So some of the exercises you might see would be generally for hip mobility, shoulder mobility, all the above. So I hope you guys like the next few exercises. This is just a little bit about a quarter of what we did this week for exercises. Maybe next week I'll throw a little bit more if everyone's liking them, and then you guys get a good idea of what week 1 looked like. Week 2 next week, we're gonna mostly be working with the same athletes, and then week 3 we have a huge increase of athletes that will be coming in, so a little bit more fitness testing and assessments that week. Hope you guys enjoy the video, and we'll see you next week.